we're all coping with Corona, and sometimes we just need to take a break and sing. And that's why we have Valerie DiLorenzo here. She is doing an amazing program, virtually, of course, as we all are, through Zoom, via Bay Street Theater. It's called Sip and Sing. And I'm so excited that you're joining us. Tell us about Sip and Sing, first of all, Valerie. Welcome.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me. So, Tracy Mitchell contacted me a couple of weeks ago, and she said we want to do something for the community. So, Fridays at 5, it's Sip and Sing. It's a virtual sing-along cabaret. And we had we had our first session last week, and there was over 350 people that joined us.
I heard our chairperson at LTV, Diana Weir, attended. She had her, martini set up with her daughter Laura, and she raved about it. She posted on it on Facebook, and I
Oh,
obviously
I'm so
I know
glad.
you as a performer, and I heard it was great. Tell
Oh,
us
I'm
how it
so
works,
glad. I hope
basically.
she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh, she had a
it's
great
about
time.
45 minutes, and I decided to do a combination of show tunes and standards and a little pop and doo-wop. So there's something for everyone. And of course everybody wanted to connect. Oh, and one of the great things is that Michael Pintoro from Bay Street, he put together the whole thing technically, but he's also putting lyrics up on the screen so people can look at their lyrics, have their little drink next to them, and sip and sing. And
walk
it's
walk
I
me
think
through
it's
the
about 45
experience.
minutes.
So
It's
walk me.
really
So it's
fun.
Fridays at 5 o'clock. So they get to their
Yes.
computer. Okay, walk me
Yes.
through what happens. They have to register and sign up ahead, right?
So
Which
they
we'll
do
give the
have to
information at the end.
register. If you're already on Bay Street's website, you're going to get that email every week. But if you're not,
Okay.
there is a link, and you go and you register on there. And then Friday, there'll be another email that comes to your notification saying, join the room. And then at 5 o'clock, we sort of let everybody in. Zoom is the new thing now. Don't you
And
wish you
everybody
had bought
can,
stock in Zoom?
I'm telling you, bigger than Apple at this point. I can't believe that the internet
Right?
hasn't crashed yet, but let's not put that
I
in the
know.
ether. Anyway,
Right.
so they join in and they can
So
all
they
see each
join
other.
in. And then you have a choice in Zoom whether you can see everyone, or you can just see yourself. And then the lyrics pop up, so you can look at the lyrics. And then there's also a way to chat. So like I can take song requests, and people talk along, and they sing along, and it
But
was
they're not
really,
all,
really
but
fun.
you're right. But then how does it work in terms of singing along? They're singing along. They hear you. You don't hear them, do you?
They hear
There'd be a
me,
lot
but
of
I don't
voices to
hear
hear.
them. No, as I'm sure anyone who's been on Zoom knows, there's this slight delay. So, oh my God, if I had 350 people singing on Zoom, we'd never get anything done.
But it's such a great outlet. I mean, but first of all, explain how you do it, because normally I know as a cabaret performer and an actress and a singer, you work with live musicians, and this is all
I
different, isn't it?
do. Oh, Angela, and you know too. I mean, as a live cabaret performer, we're kind of allergic to
Forget it.
tracks. But
Yeah.
luckily, I had a lot of tracks that musicians had made for me. I have some professional grade tracks, and then for some of the songs that were requests, honestly, I hit the internet and got some straight old instrumental tracks. So I choose the songs, I send the lyrics in, and then I play the music from my end. And so you hear me and you hear the music, and I also conduct a little bit, so
That's
you know
amazing.
exactly what to do.
Well, you do so many great things in the community. You're from Sag Harbor. Right now, you're actually in
Thank
Florida,
you.
correct?
Right, I'm
Yeah.
from Sag Harbor, and that's where I live, but I'm actually broadcasting to you now from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The
Wow.
wonders of modern technology.
And you do all kinds. And prior to all this, I mean, we all know we were working on other things. We were going to have you and the cast of thousands basically recreate the Love, Loss, and What I Wore
Yes.
at LTV in May. And I was working on a salon night for April this weekend. That's not happening, of course. But performers are basically finding ways virtually to share, which I
Yeah.
think is
Well,
important
I think
in
a
this
lot of
time. We
people
need
are
it all.
taking to the internet. Absolutely. I mean, you'll
Yeah.
see there's so many offerings, so many Broadway performers and Broadway
Oh, yeah.
casts and things like that. And I think all of the arts organizations out on the East End are doing something to keep the community connected and engaged.
Yeah. And we
One
need,
of the
we need,
greatest
I
parts
mean,
I think one of the best parts of Sip and Sing was not only the sing along, but that when you did the gallery view and you could see everybody's faces, they just wanted to see each other and connect,
Yeah.
and that was just
Yeah.
so heartwarming and fun.
Which is great. It is isolating and lonely. And obviously the heroes here are the people on the front lines every day, and everybody's trying to do their part in staying home. It's challenging. It's challenging all around. Tell me about some of the songs people are asking for and how that goes. I'm curious.
Well, people are always asking for Beatles tunes, which is good. So last week we did Let
Really?
It Be, and of course I'm doing another one
Yeah.
now. And then they like the big showstoppers. We did Don't Rain on My Parade, and we did
Oh,
all that jazz, and we're doing Cabaret this week. We did Hello Dolly. You know, you got to hit all of the major composers.
that's great.
We did A Little Lady as a Tramp. So Linda Ronstadt, Bonnie Raitt, we got to get everything covered, you know?
That's awesome. And tell me about the drinking part of it, the sipping part. Or do people have to bring a drink? Obviously, you wouldn't be able to know if they don't. I always laugh that
Don't.
they, all the liquor stores are considered essential business at this point, which is
I know, well, that's a whole
I find that
conversation.
and for some people,
No,
it is. But
it's encouraged to bring a beverage, but certainly you're by no means required to do that. I did have a couple of people email me and ask me if I had any recommendations for what they should be drinking. Last week I was drinking Prosecco.
Okay.
Tomorrow
That works for
I
me.
think I have a nice Chardonnay planned, but as singers we can't drink a lot while we're singing.
I know. I wouldn't
But,
drink. I used to have a rule. I wouldn't drink 24 hours before a performance but
I know
at this point,
it can really mess up your throat.
all bets are off really these days. They really are.
I know. And there's designated times during the songs. There's instrumental breaks, and those are designated sip times. So the other funny thing that happened, people sent me some photos and videos last week of them, sitting in front of their computer or their iPad with their little bottle or drink next to them, and that was really fun too.
That's great. I think in times like this, don't you see how the community really pulls together, especially on the East End? I don't know. I just feel it's a small but really powerful community year round.
Absolutely, all year round. I've always said that there's it's not just a summertime place. We've got arts and all kinds of activities going on all year round, but it's lovely to still stay connected with my community because I can see that people are still looking for ways to help each other everywhere, and it's just heartwarming. I'm looking forward to getting home.
When are you coming back?
At the end of April, if Amtrak lets me on the train, I'll be home on April 30th.
Is that how you're coming back?
Yes.
What's the feeling in Florida now? I mean, I'm just curious as as far as it must be different. I'm still in Manhattan. I haven't been to my house since March 7th. I'm at my house all the time, back and forth with this job, and I'm sheltering in place in the middle of the epicenter of this in Manhattan with my daughter, which is where I need to be. But it's challenging. And my neighbors sent me like a picture of the forsythia in my driveway, and I started to cry because they're blooming. And I wish I could be on the East End right now, but I think this is the thing to do and stay here. But tell me what it's like in Florida, and how do you feel about coming back to Sag Harbor, and how is life going to be different for you? And
well,
that's a lot.
Probably that's a lot. It's probably similar to what people are experiencing. When it hit here, we were kind of at the beginning of spring break. So we did have a lot of people that were not taking it seriously, like everywhere. So then they had to close the beaches. You can't go on the beach. You can walk next to the beach. And now we have our shelter in place. I mean, luckily I have a beautiful view and can function very well alone, keeping busy. But I go out every day. I take a walk. You see people. They're very friendly. They want to engage.
Yeah.
But I think, in my experience, everybody's been respectful of the 6-foot rule, and now wearing masks and gloves and things like that. And you know what? I'm looking forward to coming home for some of the same reasons you did. I have a beautiful backyard. I feel like I have my own animal sanctuary. So the ducks are there. They're in the pond. My hens, all of my animals. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's amazing. And what you're doing for the community is appreciated. I know that for sure. And Bay Street has been great in terms of reaching out for everyone. Do you expect to continue this as long as we need to? And hopefully we'll get back to real theater experiences and performing, but it's a kind of a new world right now.
Absolutely. I
to
mean, I
say the
hope
least.
so. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could all build this great community and then once we get let out, we could still stay together somehow and keep that great camaraderie spirit and compassion toward each other. I think that's
Yeah.
what we all want. And I know that the theaters and the arts organizations, everybody's in unprecedented waters, so
Yeah.
I think the plan is to do some stuff and in an abbreviated or different way. So we shall see.
Well, Valerie DiLorenzo, you're an amazing talent and a great addition to the community in
Oh,
the East
thank
End,
you so
as we all know.
much.
And we're happy that Bay Street is facilitating this for everyone. So Sip and Sing is on Fridays at 5, at least through the end of April, which actually is the same time that this program airs, but that's okay because we re-air Facts at 5 at 6:30, and we put it on our local LTV YouTube channel. So we're just happy that you're doing this. And I'm going to try and join. I could use a drink.
I hope so, Angela.
But I could really use a sing. Well, thank you. But I think it's important to engage like that, and music is healing, and we need that. We need it. So thank you.
Well, send me your requests, Devo. We got to do a duet.
Oh, I will. Nothing can stop me now. That's a good one.
Nothing can stop you now. That's a good one. We can build this dream together, standing strong forever. Nothing's gonna stop us now. And if this world runs out of
oh, where's
lovers,
Morgan? We need a trio. Morgan, well, we're gonna get Morgan in a trio. The three of us will do something.
That's
we'll be like
a
the
great
Doo-Wop
idea.
sisters.
We could do a little Andrews Sisters.
That's fine. I feel like, well, Josie and the Pussycats, these are my 6-year-old daughter's headphones that I can't find my regular earbuds. Yeah, I actually got a tattoo. She gave me a temporary tattoo in quarantine. That's what I've accomplished this week. But anyway, thank you again.
Angela, how is Ava reacting to all of this? How is she?
She's 6 years old and they can't see their friends, and it's homeschooling, and I'm working actually a lot remotely now and popping in and helping her with her her schoolwork. She misses her friends. I mean, she shouts at 7:00 every night I'm actually, she shouts with all the New Yorkers at 7:00 when the shifts change for the frontline workers, and she screams and applauds, and she says thank you to the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers. So for what a 6-year-old can process at this point, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, I think great. We're all just coping and saying, I try to make it as normal as possible. I've never been more creative in my life, I have to say, acting out things and doing their best to keep them distracted in a way and make it the same, make it like nothing, because they're trapped. Your kids are hearing everything that you're saying to friends. Like, can you believe this? And how is our life going to change? And oh my gosh, I'm worried about so-and-so. So that's hard. It's challenging. So anyway, that's it. She can't do the sipping part, but she can do fake champagne, and we'll tune into you.
I think she'll
sip
enjoy.
And sing,
I think
Valerie.
I'm going to add a little Disney tomorrow, so
okay,
I can get some of the kids involved too. Oh,
that would be nice. That would be nice.
To talk to you. Thank you so
Valerie
much.
Valerie DiLorenzo, thank you for joining us at Facts at 5, and we'll see you soon, sipping and singing at Bay Street. Thanks again.
Thank you, Angela. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hi, Bernadette Ruggiero from X-File Accounting, and you are a certified financial examiner?
Certified fraud examiner, but
certified
it goes
fraud
into the same direction.
And you have some advice for us today, or some helpful hints, let's say, in this financially troubling time. Do you want to start and say where you're from and everything?
Yeah, first of all, hi, Morgan Wan. And in the background for making this happen.
Oh,
and yes, I've been a local out on the East End for the past 14 years, and I've had my own practice. I'm a financial accountant also. I don't process taxes, but I do work with several nonprofits out on the East End, and one of them is actually LP.
And you're fantastic.
And I also work for private companies, so I do get a lot of exposure to different kind of situations. But today it was actually more important for me to talk about how the crisis can affect you on a personal level. Because in the end, that's what I actually see with my companies being in different situations and are struggling, that it automatically affects their employees,
right,
their associated vendors. And so one of the things that always comes up first is that people kind of like throw up their arms in despair and like, God, we're running out of money. We were already living paycheck to paycheck. So what are we going to do now? And there's like this German metaphor which I always like to use, where when you're like a little bit overwhelmed or a lot overwhelmed by a situation, they call that in German, the ostrich is sticking its head in the sand.
We have that too in English.
You have that too, okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is perfect. Where at some point you feel like, God, let me slowly take my head out of the sand again and see how it's looking. But by then you've missed many opportunities that could have helped you right in that situation, in that moment. So yeah,
Okay,
I
so
wanted
we're
to
talking
take
about right now, we're sitting there, we've got our heads in the sand completely. Oh my God, what is going to happen? How am I going to survive? And what are some practical hints?
Yeah, so one thing I personally have been doing almost all my adult life, because I've had financial hardships and I have no family cushion or anything to fall back on. So one of my things that I always do, and people laugh about it, but it really just gives me a peace of mind, is my Excel spreadsheet. And you don't even need to do it on a computer. You just sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and you write down on a monthly or weekly basis. Right, like right now, you probably want to do it rather weekly. What's the money coming in? What's the money going out? And after you add all the incoming money and you deduct all the outgoing money, you're going to have a plus or a minus. And that's when you want to see, okay, maybe first of all, I mean, obviously right now we're limited in how we can influence the incoming side, but the one side that we do have still, I think, wiggle room in many cases is the outgoing side. So one of the things I right away would recommend is for people to go online, print their last 3 bank statements and credit card statements, and then just really go over it with a highlighter and highlight anything where they feel like, okay, that's something I can probably forego for the near future. Make sure that you're putting certain subscriptions on hold or canceling them as of right now. Certain things we usually never think about. And then you go back to your piece of paper and your pen and, you adjust your expense side, and then you're going to see. So how much money am I going to be in the negative?
What about?
So then.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then you kind of like, then you look, okay, what other financial options do I have outside of earning money?
So one thing I saw that you suggested is if you have a federal student loan, that there are, I think it's the CARES Act. Right now, you can look up and see what alternative you have, or if they'll stop doing the interest or whatever. Can you explain more about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I think it is part of the CARE Act, because the CARE Act is the overall threshold for all these different government initiatives. And one of them, I personally also have a federal student loan.
Okay.
For my second degree here, when I finished my accounting degree. And so I got the message that you have to be careful that I may apply for that. So you could have a government loan or a federally funded loan, but it may not fall into this. So what I did is, before I actually got on the call, is I went online. I have an account with an institution called Nelnet that administers my government loan. And there they tell you that you need to pull up one of your latest statements, and you just want to identify your account number. And if that number starts with E, then it applies. And what that means is actually that, first of all the interest calculations will be waived until September 30th, 2020. So actually, and also on top of that, you do not owe any payments.
Okay.
But in order to make sure that that's actually true, you should keep looking into your account, because the balance due should be adjusted and should be reflecting zero. So you always want to kind of be on top of that. If you do see, it's not zero, then you may want to reach out to your institution and inquire about that.
Okay. That's great.
Other things I do want to mention is that while there is no interest computed for the next 6 months, if you do have any funds available, keep making your payments. Right. Because it will help you, because now 100% of those payments will go towards your principal.
Oh, fantastic. So
Yeah,
that's
so
really
let's not always think worst case. Let's also think, okay, maybe I should keep up or make half of that payment, even
okay.
though it's not required, because it helps.
Well, won't it? I mean, it'll be required anyway at someday. I mean, it's just
I
putting
don't
off.
think it will be added to the back end. I didn't read that.
Wait, I'm
I
sorry.
think they like it won't be the interest won't be added to the back end. I think they're literally pausing the calculating of it.
No, I meant that the interest will be paused, but that the actual loan will not be. So it's best to
Yeah, no.
keep track, doing
Well,
it
no,
as
but
you
the
go.
loan, well, no, any payment right now, you don't have to make literally if you have that E in front of your federal student loan account number. And please, again, don't just take my word, go into your account and check. But the way I understood it is that you do not owe any payments
Okay.
up through September 30th, 2020, which for some people, that means a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Have you had any luck with any of your clients or you calling the credit card companies and saying, "Hey, can you lower my APR for the next little bit?" I mean, that's a
Yeah,
suggestion you
actually,
have.
I mean, I did it myself because I thought instead of just talking about it, I might as well just try and report. So one of the important things, first of all, my credit card company is Capital One. So that's basically the example I'm going to be talking about right now. But one of the things is first I was like, oh, I can't suggest people to call up their credit card companies to potentially look for any relief, like lowering their annual percentage rate or their minimum payments due, because the phone systems are so overwhelmed. But then I was like, you know what? Let me just try it anyways.
Okay.
And it turned out my call was answered after the first ring.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I was so surprised because Capital One, I inquired with the customer service representative, and she explained to me that they have different departments, and the one that is now so overburdened is the dispute department.
Oh, okay.
So they are in a different area of customer service, and they don't have that kind of call volume. And she right away agreed to lower my annual percentage rate by 5%.
Oh, fantastic.
I took it, and then she also then she asked if I have any other questions. I said, yeah. Is there anything else that you have currently available for people that are in need? And she said, yes, we actually also offer another option where you can also lower that no minimum payment will be due on any of your credit card purchases.
Oh, wow.
So you can still use your credit card and that, but you have to set this up. You
Okay.
have to call the credit card company. This is not automatic.
So you have
But
to call
when
your
you
credit card
inquire-
company. If I have Amex or I have Bank of America, I have to call my credit card company and I have to set this up right by myself.
Yes.
Okay.
And whatever credit card company you plan on using, I have one card that I use all the time because I get like the most points there.
Right.
But yes, and then they go through like a little, their usual slurch. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And the good thing is that with the no minimum payment due, you do not have to make a payment, and that means you can still use the card. They won't be charging any penalties.
Okay.
I did not opt into this because the minimum payments usually are so low that I was like, okay, that's fine. But I mean, the APR is something, when you have a card with like 25%, it can highly affect you. The only thing that reduction did not apply for, and that's very important because I specifically inquired about that, is cash advances.
Okay. Yeah.
That's at the actual interest rate, and that is usually very high. So I would recommend for people, instead of using their credit card to get cash, to actually use the card to make their purchases in the store.
Yeah. Okay. That is good. That is really good to know. What about our taxes? Because we can put them off until July 15th, but
July 15th. And I mean, payment, whatever is due, but no penalty or interest will accrue until then.
Okay.
Which I still encourage in order to keep, your head above water as much as you can, to start making minimum payments. If you already know, if you already know what you're gonna owe, start putting yourself on an installment.
Okay.
Because the moment your life routine kicks in, unless they come up with care too, then
What about?
you're going
I'm
to have
sorry.
accruing interest and penalty the moment you file your taxes on July 15th and you
Right.
owe balance.
What about? Can we call our banks about mortgages and what's going on with mortgages and things like that? Home equity loans,
Also,
etc.
also here, I mean, here the unique opportunity right now is, or the unique situation is that almost everybody is involved. So the banks, the mortgage companies, credit companies, they are all prepared for people calling in and asking for relief. And instead of, that's the other thing, you also want to actually go to your site. Go also set up as many things you have, like your credit cards, set everything up online. You can keep an eye like on card charges and also on special offers. And the same mortgage companies, whoever you have your mortgage with, they have an online account, and all the time you should be able to see an offer there or call them up.
Okay.
Because right now people, they know you're not using. There's just no faking this.
Right. That which
This
brings
is
me to
real.
my next point, which is the
Mhm.
scamming. I went on
Yeah,
my bank today, and there was a huge. Basically, all it talked about was scams, because
yes,
apparently the scammers are just taking total advantage of this situation, which is pretty easy to do because everybody's panicking. So, what is your
exactly.
advice to people?
My advice is, because it affects me too. I mean, I get regular training through the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, but I'm also a person that receives emails on a daily basis. I'm also someone who needs to function, and my advice to that is be very wary. Do not where anything comes unsolicited. And
Okay.
even though it looks legit and it shows the logo of a certain entity, but do not provide any information where you basically click on an email. I mean, that's pretty common sense, but right now, people probably are through the panic mode or less in protective mode.
Right. Okay. We
And
don't have
so,
any hard. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, go to the actual site where you have your account. That's why it's also important that you set up your account. And they're also warning that you should be very wary about the stock purchases currently. Like the SEC has already banned several companies, because if you still have some cash available, you might think, oh, how can I actually come out on top of this?
Oh,
But
okay.
the SEC has continuously been banning certain companies for misleading information. And once, I mean, they have an option, from what I understood, to put them on a ban for 10 days. You cannot sell your stock during that time.
Oh, okay.
I think once that's mixed around, it's kind of like the kiss of death for a stock if the SEC is already waving the red flag.
You know what, Bernadette? I didn't even see what time it was, but I think we have like time for one more thing. Do you have any like
Yep.
one overall piece of advice that you have for everybody?
Well, it's just right now to stay alert, and kind of like, I know people always see, because I hear this all the time. What are you always stressing about, making, like, putting this together or making this or that in terms of my personal finances? But it is what keeps me sane. So that little extra stress that you may have by keeping track of this on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, it will make you be able to fall asleep at night and to focus on other things like your family right now and your children's schooling, where you kind of like, you feel like you can breathe, because we all know this, when we're like in panic mode, our attention span is very low.
Right.
So just try to do whatever you can.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bernadette. This has been great.
You're very welcome. You guys hang in there. I love the facts advice.
As we all know, this is a very special week if you are religious. And we have two of the leaders in our community in East Hampton here with us to talk about what it's like going into this very holy week for those who observe. Our guests today are the very Reverend Denis Brunelle from St. Luke's Episcopalian Church and Rabbi Josh Franklin from the Jewish Center of the Hampton. Welcome. Thank you both for being here. I know that we're here in a way virtually. Father Brunelle, I'll start with you. First of all, welcome back. I know you've been away for several months. Tell us what's the state of everything at St. Luke's Church now. I know this is a new world for all of us.
The bishop, who is the overseer for all the Episcopal churches on Long Island, closed down the churches when the first order came down from the state. And we've been closed down for over a month now. And right now the close down is supposed to last, unless that changes, till May 17th. So it's been a locked church. No one's been inside except either Mother Leandra, my assistant, or myself to do the Sunday service, so that as we do the Zoom modality for worship, they have the church in the background as kind of a way of placing themselves within the sacred space. We began Holy Week yesterday. We had about 100 people at our 10 o'clock service and maybe about 30 at the 8 o'clock service on Zoom. The hard thing that I found with the Zoom is that it tells you how many have checked in, but then there are a lot of couples on the one check-in, and so trying to get the number down is the hard part in all of it.
I understand that. Well, so Rabbi Josh, I know that you have been using, obviously, social media at the Jewish Center in a variety of ways. Tell us what's happening at the Jewish Center these days, and how are you communicating with everyone?
Sure. I like to say we're not closed, but we're virtually open. And that is, we have our entire community that is now online in every which way that you can possibly imagine. Of course, we've already been doing social media and emails, but now all of our classes are virtual through Zoom. Same with all of our worship services on Friday and Saturday for Shabbat. And this week we're doing, for the first time ever, Zoom Passover Seders. Passover is the time of the year where we normally gather with our family and our friends, and tables can be as big as 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 people. We normally do a second night Seder in our sanctuary, and clearly none of that's happening this year. Families are apart, but we're going to try to be, at the very least, virtually connected to one another. We've been doing the best that we can, and it's a new medium from which we are forming community.
How is that working out? Are people enjoying it?
It's different. I think right now the world, and I'm sure you'll see it in the Episcopalian Church as well, there's a need for spirituality right now amidst this crisis. And so one of the things that we've been finding is that virtually our numbers have gone up tremendously. And it's not just that we have a larger base to draw from because we're drawing virtually. I think that it's more people need to engage because there's a spiritual void and there is emotional health concerns that are going on within the community right now. And that's why we're seeing an increase in participation. We're seeing tremendous numbers on Zoom. In fact, we've had to upgrade our account in order to accommodate the number of people that are joining us.
Father Brunelle, in terms of people who wanted to go to communion, obviously, or in confession, what do you say to them? It's so hard now.
Well, we don't have the amount of individual confessions that, say, the Roman Catholic Church does. Within our service itself, we do have a confession, a general confession, and an absolution. So that's always part of our service, so that's not an issue. I can tell you that while I was up in New Hampshire on sabbatical, I had family members that were in the process of passing, and this had already started, and it ended up dealing with them over the phone. I know that a dear friend of mine who's a member of this parish, she passed, and I had to deal with family members over the telephone as they're going through this process of the matriarch dying and what do we do. And the reality of today's society is in one way, thank God for cremation. So that way a service can be postponed enough time so that when we can gather together in physical proximity, that is able to be done. I think if there's anything, and I'm sure Josh feels the same here, is that community has so involved that proximity of people being together and celebrating their faith together. Our Eucharistic service, the Passover meal, the Seder, the Shabbat, it all really entails us being together as a community to being able to uplift. And this presents a challenge to that physicality, to one of how we can be together over a medium such as this. I know that on Sunday, the number of emails that I received today about being able to do Palm Sunday and Passion Sunday for us,
Right.
entails a procession, which entails waving the palms, not being able to do that. But yet the people's response back has been, thank you. It helped me get grounded again. This is the first Sunday in this week that we hear a Passion narrative from this year was Matthew. And part of that narrative has some glimmers of resurrection running through it, even as we're listening to the Passion story of Jesus. There are several times where the resurrection is hinted to. And so what I tried to do is use that even in this hard time, even in this moment when things are so difficult, there's still hope for the future. There's still the possibility of new life. And that what this week is about is that no matter how hard the story is, there's always hope at the end. And I think that's going to be the struggle for any clergy in the Christian tradition, of how they convey that over a tool like this, which is God-centered in some way. So that's, and I like the Seder meal being so important because you have people there. For us, communion is important, but we can't do it right now. We just
Josh,
can't.
tell me,
So go ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to cut it. It must be very frustrating, and yet this is something, right, that connects people. It is something, and we need that connection. It would be nice to do things in a different way, or the way that we know. I mean, in terms of sitting Shiva for people, Josh, and people passing, and what do you say to them?
You know, this is all uncharted territory, or at least I don't think anyone in recent memory can really figure this out. And I don't want to say we're making it up as we go along, but we're certainly trying to navigate the rules as we go along. Yeah. Funerals right now are being done only graveside. And on top of that, Shiva is more or less canceled. We don't want people traveling from place to place. Health, the community's health is the number one priority right now. And unfortunately, that means Shiva has got to be delayed at the very least until after the virus passes. So there's so many things that we can't do the way that we normally did them, but most of the things we're figuring out how to best adapt so that we can still do them, albeit in a different way.
You talked about Isaiah in one of your Zoom chats. I thought it was very interesting, Josh. You know, about how many glasses of wine too. You were saying for I don't know if you wanted to comment on that.
Sure. I talked about Elijah. I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. That's right. It was Elijah.
So Elijah the prophet
Isaiah.
He's a regular as a part of the Passover experience.
It was close.
The tradition
I'm
is
the
that
last Catholic here, so give me.
Look, Elijah is important in the Christian tradition as well. But according to the Jewish tradition, Elijah is going to be the harbinger of the coming of the Messiah, but serves another role as well, which is Elijah brings good news to us each and every year. And one of the things that we do at a Passover Seder is we open the door to Elijah, and we leave a cup of wine out for Elijah to come be our guest at a Passover Seder. This year, we're pretty much closing off our doors to any guests, but we are hoping that Elijah does bring us some good news this year, because we all really do need good news amidst the time where when you turn on CNN, NBC, Fox News, whatever it is, whatever media outlet that you watch, good news is scarce and hard to come by.
Or LTV. It's very
I didn't want to go
challenging.
There, but sure.
Yeah. No, it's rough. In terms of the actual services coming up this week, if you could each talk about what times you're doing things and what exactly is happening. Father Brunelle, you want to go? Well,
our next service would be Monday, Thursday, Holy Thursday at 7:00 in the evening. We'll be doing our service via Zoom. The address can be found on our website, the link, I should say. And in that service, I've asked people to set aside a small bowl of water and a towel, a piece of bread, a cup of wine, and other foods that they might use at Easter time. And during the service, we'll have, instead of the washing of the feet, which is part of the Christian tradition based on John 13, we'll ask them to wash the hands at home. Then instead of the Eucharist, what I'll do is have an agape meal, as we would call it, where they would hold up their bread, and at that time I would say a blessing over the bread, and the same thing with the wine, and then whatever foods they want to use at Easter time, doing that same thing, a blessing over that food. On Good Friday at 12 noon, we'll have our service. Again, it'll be in the church, and Mother Leandra and myself will be sharing that service. As we contemplate that moment for us as Christians, that was extremely important. And then Easter Sunday morning at 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, we'll have our Easter Sunday services with hymns, and unfortunately, no Easter egg hunt or any of the other stuff that's been part of the tradition here in the past. But we'll celebrate the best we can and get through this because there is new life yet to come.
Great. Rabbi Josh, tell us what's going on.
So on Wednesday night, we are having our first Passover Seder at 5 p.m. You can RSVP on our website, and then you'll receive a link from after you RSVP. We have a second night Seder on Thursday night, also at 5 p.m. We'll have a Passover service on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. And our typical Shabbat services are happening also via Zoom. Links are on our website. 6 p.m. on Friday night and 10 a.m. on Saturday morning.
And you're still giving some lectures via Zoom as well, Josh, right?
Yeah, I for anyone who's interested, I do teach a class in the history of anti-Semitism. Reverend Brunelle and I actually taught a class last summer, and we're planning on teaching a class this summer together as well, though we haven't quite figured out the topic. And I hope it doesn't have to be on Zoom. I hope we can actually do it in person. But if need
be careful with Zoom.
I'm sure we're going to teach it on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay. Be careful. There's been Zoom bombing. You know that. Satan has went to Zoom sometimes, so be careful. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware.
We're aware. We've been increasing our privacy measures.
Before we go, I just want to give you each an opportunity to address the community, obviously, which is we need you. We need you. We need leadership, and we need spirituality. And I know, Father Brunelle, you talked a lot about gratitude, but just to give us some thoughts about how people stay strong in times this is really, I mean, we've been through a lot of things, obviously, but this is tough on every level for everybody. What do you say?
I mean, I do talk about gratitude because I think that is, for me, at least in my life, has been a sense of hope. Paul in his scripture says, rejoice in everything. Again, I say rejoice. And that's kind of hard to do when you're in a hard situation like this, or when you're feeling isolated or filled with fear. But yet, if we allow the fear to take over, then we allow hope to die. And so my expression to people is look for those bright moments in a day. Whether that's a sunrise or watching the flowers blossom, or it's hearing the birds chirp, or it's maybe someone has done something good for you. I mean, I look at the people that we're helping out with through our outreach programs still, the people that we telephone that aren't even members of our parish, but yet we know that there's a need. Those are hopeful moments. Those are what I would call resurrection moments. And each act of kindness that we do will help dissipate the despair and that lack of and it'll help get rid of that isolation that we feel. So my word to the community is keep your head held high and keep on giving thanks to God for the little things that you have and have been given to you, and then pass that on. Be kind to someone else.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that, especially in the community in East Hampton, people leaving food anonymously at other doors that, if they're delivering for someone, and I've never talked to so many people in my life and right during this period of time, and just checking in on them. Rabbi Josh, what do you say to congregation, people who really need to
remind everyone. I would remind everyone, it's obvious, I think, that we're going through a physical health crisis right now with the virus that is affecting so many people. But I would say that simultaneously, it's causing an emotional health crisis and a spiritual health crisis. And those are two things that often go overlooked. And our community out there, of course, stay safe, stay physically distanced from everyone, but stay socially connected to the people, to your community. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. Of course, now is the time to make all of the phone calls that you have put off for a long period of time in your life, connecting with people who you should have connected with long ago and reconciling with them and fixing relationships that might have been a little bit strained. But it's also the time to stay connected to community. And I think people are realizing that now more than ever. Community keeps us grounded. Community helps us during the most trying times in life. It'll help us through whatever personal crises we might be going through, and it'll certainly help us through the current crisis that we're seeing with the coronavirus. So continue to maintain the connections in your life that will strengthen your spirit, strengthen your soul, and make sure to be aware of your emotional and spiritual health in the midst of this virus.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Josh from the Jewish Center of the Hamptons and Father Brunelle from St. Luke's Episcopal Church, both in East Hampton. We at LTV really appreciate you coming on and being with us today at Facts at 5. And thank you again, and wishing you the best.
Thank you.
We'll have
Blessed
information.
Passover, Josh.
Yes, and we'll have the information at the end of the show program. So we'll be saying, where everybody can zoom in and stream with you guys. So thank you again.
God bless. Bye-bye.
All right. Happy Passover.
Thank you, Morgan and Chrissy. I am very excited today because we have, I would think, the most local hero for our wildlife, a wildlife expert, and he really is all things wildlife. Can I say wildlife any more times? Dell Cullum, you're the man. You're the person. If there's somebody's got a possum in their attic, but it's not just that. It's you really do an amazing service to the community. And I know that you have this new not-for-profit. Tell people who may not know who you are and what you do about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here. I love LTV and I support them 100%, and they've always supported me. And that's a really good relationship. And that's why I like to produce my educational shows for you guys. And that's what I do. My name is Dell Cullum, and I do all things wildlife out here, from education to removal to rehabilitation to rescue. But I most recently started a new not-for-profit 501c3 organization based around wildlife rescue specifically. because there was a need for it as the end of our island, which is so narrow in a sense. As we continue to populate, becomes more or less and less habitat for our wonderful and beautiful and very much abundant wildlife. And that creates issues with humans, impact with each other. Sure. So that's why we step in and.
Right. Now, I'm curious how it works out, obviously, in a time of isolation, and yet the natural habitat is poking its head out now as the warmer weather is coming. And are you still doing calls now? Are you able to still do that?
Absolutely, more than ever, but really mostly removals at this point and less rescue, which is a good thing. Okay, of course, the less rescues that I'm doing is always means that the community is being careful and respecting and appreciating what we have. So that's always a good thing. The removals, on the other hand, it's interesting because of the situation that we're in and the fact that a lot of our summer visitors and summer homeowners came out early. They're detecting things that they normally wouldn't detect until Memorial Day. Yeah. Well, no, more realistically, a hole in their roof, which is the doorway to raccoons and squirrels at this point. So it is the birthing season, and people are noticing it early. Is it good? Is that good for them? Well, yeah, kind of. You're getting the problem taken care of rather than 2 or 3 months down the road. However, it's a problem nonetheless. So, part of our organization is really educating the community on not only how to be careful and more aware of the wildlife, but also how to be more preventative and preventative to keep them from impacting our actual structures, our homes, and learn to live with wildlife rather than find ways to not live with them.
Well, I find you fascinating because I've watched your imagination nature programs again and again. First of all, the way you speak to the animals, you're like, it's like, come here, little guy, come here, little boy, and then sometimes you call a possum a knucklehead. It's so endearing. But you seem so calm. You seem calm. And I have to ask you, have you ever been hurt or in danger? Because you do come in contact with some situations, which I would think, that it might be scary for anyone.
Yeah, well, there have been times, and that's the number one thing that we teach. No matter who teaches rescue, that's really the priority is safety first. Because if you hurt yourself, then you can no longer be helpful to that animal. Right. But look, animals are strong creatures, and the one thing that we have going against us is we can't predict their actions, and they're quick and they're responsive to things that we don't know. So, when we grab them the wrong way or get in the wrong, just like, the old thing, don't get behind a horse and smack it on the butt. It's common sense, but every now and then something happens. A good example is last year I went and rescued a great blue heron. Now, I've done this many times before, but in this instance, and I had safety protection on my eyes because that's one of the more key things you think about when you're rescuing a bird that has a long, sharp beak. And in fact, the bird turned and struck me in the face, and it hit me in the glasses and slid off and cut me on the side of the head. And from there, as many times as I've done it, it took that time when I got a little nip, and it made me think, well, how can I make that not happen again? So now I have glasses that have the wide band. So if it does slide off the glass for any reason, in fact, I like to use the big goggles. That protects a larger portion of the head. It's not as fashionable, but that's what we're not out there for.
I think if you could mass produce those, you should mass produce those right now. You could actually, you could retire early. Yeah.
Whole face things. Yeah.
What are the most common calls that you get, and how do people reach you? I'm asking you two questions at once. I realize, but I have so much I want to ask you. What's the most common? Would you say is there a most common call you get?
Well, there is, and unfortunately, it's most of the time it has to do with deer, and deer and automobile collisions, which we could talk about all day long. So that's subject matter that there's just so many different variables to. But it is one of our biggest calls because there's so many things we've done to impact these animals, whether it be fencing or lack of corridors or keeping them on the roadsides and,
because
all
people
these
think,
things.
I think the deer population is so great, but we've really ruined it for them. So they're forced to run into the road half the time, don't you think?
Well. Again, quickly, my theory is the populations aren't any much different than they ever were, because they control their population habits. When there's less habitat, as a species, they tend to have less young. They regulate themselves that biologically, but when they are when we constrict the habitat so quickly and so abruptly, these animals are pushed into small pockets, which makes deer to be in larger quantities. So, when you see one or two deer running around, it doesn't look so bad. But when you see 10 of them together, you say, oh my God, those three populated so fast. No, you took 10 houses away of their habitat, and now they're forced into living together. And that creates all the other problems as well about them, what they eat and tick issues and all that other stuff. But really, the impact affects them. They get injured. They get caught in fences. They get entangled. If somebody doesn't find them, they literally die and decompose wrapped in fences. They get caught going through gates.
Does somebody, let's say someone either finds a deer on their property in distress, or someone reports a deer. Do they use the app that you created, or how do people let you know, and then what happens?
No. The app is actually for us. The app you could think of as like a fireman's pager. All the rescue responders that are signed on as volunteers use that app as a pager. And when I dispatch your report, you would call us. And how many people do you have? Yeah, right. Well, it depends. It depends what the situation. If you report a deer that needs, is down and needs to be brought to a doctor, we're going to need more than one person to lift that deer. So I'll dispatch 2 or 3 people. If, for a variety of circumstances. But what the public does is they call the 1-844 number, which is 844-SAVE-WILD, SAVWILD, which ends up being 728-9453. So that's 844-728-9453. And I will field that call no matter where I am. I will field the call. I will get all the information necessary. And if I feel we need to dispatch a volunteer 24/7, 365 days a year, we will dispatch somebody to go either observe or rescue and transport, if necessary, that injured or distressed animal.
That's great.
And we have a whole handful of unbelievable volunteers, which incidentally cross volunteer with our other outstanding organization that we're fortunate to have here on the East End, and that's Evelyn Alexander Wildlife Rescue and Rehab Center. Yeah,
they're amazing.
So,
I know.
The wildlife out here really, despite all the human impact, all the adversity against them, they sure have their backs being watched by some pretty amazing people and some great organizations.
Yes. And can you tell us how baby squirrels are doing lately? Or you always have, it's either a possum or baby squirrels that you feed. Do you have them?
I
did not know this. I just guessed it.
I know, and I was going to have Athena, my owl, all ready for you, but she's molting. She's molting in the head again, which makes her look not so pretty.
It's the screech owl. Anyway, I remember speaking to you at the Village Summer Festival. Let me see. Oh, Look, who
Look
is
at this
the
little
name?
guy.
Do you have a name for this little guy?
No, not yet.
Not Scurry
It's
too?
it's still too young, but
Look at that
he's
face.
coming along really good. I mean, these guys
What
are the
happened?
greatest.
How old is that little
Yeah.
guy?
These are 3 weeks. Their eyes opened yesterday.
Wow.
So they're doing
And they
really
trust-
good. And we're taking
How is
good
it
care
that
of them.
they trust you? Is it you born with the snack? How did you even
Well,
get into wildlife? I'm curious. I'm serious.
Well, at this age, they have no choice. They were
I don't
pulled
know.
out of a wall, and
Mommy.
Mama was not able to be found. So they trust us because right now we're their mommy. I say we because my wife Dee is an incredible help. I mean, she's really the key to the rehabilitation part of what I do. But they're just, the older ones, they get to trust you because it's just animal instinct. They know who's good and they know who's bad, and they know who's super good and who's out there to help them. And that's
You are super
that's
good.
why
That we know.
that's what I contribute this to. Well, I have a good relationship with these animals. I happen to care a lot about them. I really do.
Yeah. And I know you, and you care about a lot of things. Can we touch briefly on, because I know that the way people have been disposing of garbage in the Hamptons and the East End is despicable. And now with these gloves that everybody's wearing, there's that issue, and the beaches. And I know you've had to postpone not only the benefit that you were doing for your new a wildlife organization, the not-for-profit, the comedy benefit you were doing, but now the Earth Day shoreline. Tell us what's the state of it out there? In terms of
you're right.
Garbage. I don't understand what's the matter with people, but
well, I haven't figured it out either of all the years I've been doing this, and this would have been the 7th year for the shoreline sweep, and I'm really a little bummed out about it. But this is something we can always do when this is over. However, the beaches, I'll tell you, the beaches are doing a little better, in my opinion, and rumor has it they're going to take these ridiculous, ugly garbage receptacles off the beaches in the village this summer, which is fantastic news.
Really?
But these gloves, the way people are disposing of these latex gloves, which ironically, we're wearing these gloves to protect ourselves, yet we're destroying our planet. It doesn't make any sense, but it never did make any sense. And quite frankly, I think if there was an answer, I would have probably figured out at least part of it by now. And I haven't even scratched the surface. So I kind of laid back on it. It was kind of driving me crazy. My head was hurting from banging it against the wall, as you can imagine. But here we are now, and fortunately, I'm not as, I don't let it upset me as much as I did then, because just seeing these gloves on the ground, it just makes me feel like, uh-oh, here it comes again.
Here we go. It's like a bad balloon case almost, the same thing. Yeah. Well, but we're hoping that where people were searching, in this time of quarantine and why is this happening and all this, and sometimes there are actually decent quotes that say, we're just guests here on this planet. But I don't know if how long they hold on to that for. Do we have to be quarantined for a year? I'm not sure. I don't think we will be.
I don't know. I don't know, but I tell you, here's a suggestion. Let's take some of this time that we have to sit home and reflect and kind of try to reflect on some of the more wiser choices that we actually can make environmentally and for our wildlife and ultimately for ourselves, because nature is life, and without nature there is no life. And we depend on it. We need it. So we need to respect it, and we need to care for it a little bit better.
Yes. And your new show, I just want to talk about it quickly because it's so well shot, produced. It's called Wildlife Rescue. No, it's really well done. I love the music in it. I love what you have to say. I love the animal stuff. I mean, obviously animal stuff, all of it. But it's you have 2 episodes done. It's going to be airing on LTV again, or because I know you.
Yes.
I think so.
The plan was. Yeah, the plan was I made 5 episodes of this series called Wildlife Rescue. It's all it was going to be, 5 episodes, and I was hoping prior to this issue, this coronavirus issue, was to spread the series throughout the spring and summer for everyone, as not only educational but to promote the nonprofit and all the wildlife nonprofits here on the East End, and show what we do and kind of highlight some of these volunteers that are just awesome.
Yeah.
And in the interim, I've realized that, maybe now would be a good opportunity to share this with people who are home and wondering what to do and things. So I kind of jumped the gun on it. I don't feel bad about it. I have other ideas up my sleeve for other films and specials planned for you guys at LTV. I just,
great work.
I always like to keep my plate full when it comes to material for you guys.
Well, we appreciate it, and we love you, Dell, and the community needs you, obviously, and I'm so glad that you were here. Yes, and I hope that people do reach out. I mean, obviously, everybody is in need these days, but what you do is so part of what keeps our planet and our place in the East End that amazing, I think. And like you say, wildlife matters, and that is what you're doing.
Yes,
so if people can
indeed.
contribute to that cause. Yeah. So the wildlife rescue of East Hampton, and that will have a benefit at some point. What? Say it again. The wildlife.
Well, you had it right. Wildlife Rescue of East Hampton. Yet the website is WROEH.org. Wildlife Rescue of East Hampton.org.
We'll put
just 11.
We'll put that. We'll put that in the phone number up at the end.
Awesome.
And yeah. And thank you for joining us at Facts at 5, Dell. And we'll see you at LTV. We will see you at LTV.
Angela, thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you, and thank everybody there. I love you all. You're great. You're great people. I support you all 100% for everything you do, and just the friendship and that we've created over the years. But most importantly, what you do for the community. It's just unbelievable. Hats off to you guys.
And my daughter is reading your Scurry the Squirrel book, which is so great. Which I got this summer for Passover.
Well, we're working on number 3. Number 3.
Good.
Okay.
Keep it coming.
All right.
Thank you, Dell.
Thank you, Angela. Bye-bye.